as I said earlier, like, I'm not a landscaper. I'd love to be able to use a digger, but it's like that's a mass casualty event. So.
Welcome everybody to another Outside Crowd podcast, and delighted to be here. We got a full house, but we haven't got Billy this time, have we? We have got Ryan.
Yo.
We have also got Peter Landstone, Rabbit, who's Ryan's team leader at Royal Tunbridge Wells Landscapes.
Good evening, everybody.
And we're delighted to have a guest. We have Josh Taylor from Taylor's Organic Gardening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Delighted for you to come along and delighted to have you on board. So we'll have a bit of a run through. So I suppose the first thing is to start off, give us a bit of background about yourself, what you do and how you got started, all that sort of stuff.
Well, that's take us up to the full hour.
We charge waiting time after that.
Fair point. Okay, so I have been gardening properly for well over a decade now. Well over. But I arrived in the industry, it was a second career for me, as with a lot of people in horticulture, and not wanting to kind of big up the people coming into the industry as a second career, but I see what there's a level of passion, I believe, that comes as part of that that's really exciting.
Yes.
So prior to working in horticulture, I was in the music industry to a degree for the best part of a decade.
Oh, right.
I played bass in a band, and I'm really lucky to have spent the best part of a decade. I've played like Glastonbury, Latitude.
Really?
Yes.
I've had an amazing time with it.
Oh,
really lucky. And towards the end of that time, I sort of found myself kind of looking around, trying to find something that I wanted to spend my life doing. And horticulture very much kind of filled that brief for me.
Yeah.
I'd had going way back to leaving school. I'm going to sound like a bit of a weirdo. I was a kind of kid at the age of kind of 15, 16. I was really into being outdoors. Loved stuff like ornithology. I love plants. So I decided to go down the route of studying practical habitat management at Meristwood, which is, I think it's now called like Countryside Studies or something like that. With this kind of romantic idea of leaving and then getting a job with the RSPB.
Yeah.
I then worked doing roadworks for 2 years, so that didn't pan out. But like I say, I fell into like the music side of things. Amongst that, I've also done like you name the kind of blue collar job. I've stacked plenty of shelves. I've been there and done it.
Fair.
So sorry, one question, because I was a frustrated bass guitarist. I used to play in a band with a bassist as well. My highlight was probably the anti-poll tax demo, I think, years and years ago. But were you a session musician, or were you like in a band, and maybe ask who?
Yeah, I played in a band. We actually were based in Tunbridge Wells for a long time. So long-winded name, but I played for a guy called Tom Williams, and the band was called Tom Williams and the Boat. We're kind of folky, sort of a bit kind of, I don't know, sort of Nick Cavey sort of style, I suppose. But it was a really good time.
Yeah,
really
excellent.
good
time.
Excellent. But I think coming to the end of seeing into that kind of side of my life, I think it was kind of I wanted to move into something that was fundamentally creative. I didn't really know what route that was going to take, and I think to a degree I kind of fell into horticulture, and there was definitely a kind of an interest in it. I was at that point where I was coming home on a Friday and looking forward to Gardener's World.
Oh,
right?
There's
a cup of tea in his slippers.
Absolutely.
And so it was. I say I fell into it, but I had a friend, or one of the best friend, kind of growing up. His brother ran a kind of garden maintenance company that was just around the corner from here, Broadleaf Grounds Maintenance.
Yeah.
And what a set of opportunities that provided. That was an opportunity to go out and play on really quite big gardens.
Wow, yeah.
You know, they're not the kind of landed gentry estates. Like, it wasn't like walking into, you know, a sort of capability brown landscape, but they were really interesting gardens. Wow. And I really fell in love with it.
Oh, brilliant.
That's kind of it. I really got a taste for kind of being outdoors. You know, and I suppose it harkens back to that time of, doing the countryside management stuff when I was at Marist Wood all those years ago. But I I thrived on being a bit wet and a bit cold and a bit miserable, but then turning out something that's fundamentally incredibly beautiful. I was with that company probably for about 18 months, 2 years, and I landed a job part-time down at Fairlight Hall, which is, unsurprisingly, in Fairlight, near Hastings.
Right, yes.
Big organic estate down there, sprawling estate. I think you're talking about 10 acres, which for this region is really quite large. And that's a beautiful estate that's got its incredible far-reaching views out across, sort of Rye Bay onto, Folkestone beyond.
Beautiful, yeah.
Stunning. And that was a great introduction to organic gardening and practices, and suddenly being in a position where, your PA1, PA6 is suddenly totally borderline irrelevant. You think, okay, cool. So,
that was good, wasn't it?
and I haven't really used it since.
Yeah.
But no, that was a great experience. I then went on and worked for kind of small estates in private settings.
So at this stage, were you working actually sort of on the gardens, on the tools as such?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I still am. I'm still mud underneath my fingernails. Before coming here, I was getting changed in my beloved client's downstairs bathroom.
Yeah.
Thank you, Liz.
Yes.
But and my left hand still stings from stinging nettles. So I'm actually really proud of that side of what I'm still doing, and I'll come on to that in a minute in terms of the practical side of things and how good that is fundamentally for me as a gardener and as an individual.
Yeah.
After Fairlight Hall, I ended up, like I say, working for a few smaller kind of private estates. But then, and this is kind of, I suppose in some ways it's one of the gardens that's defined my career, but long story short, ended up working at Brick Wall, which is home to Fruin College in Northiam. Okay. It's kind of on the outskirts. Weirdly, there's a little kind of brown sign on one of the roundabouts leading towards it. So it used to be open to the public.
Yeah.
Brick Wall is the oldest walled garden in East Sussex, so it's this beautiful old space. But it's also home to Fruin College, which is a dyslexia specialist school. I started working there, but I applied for the head gardener position and didn't get it. But I remember walking around and just absolutely falling in love with the space and the way it sat. I say the way it sat within a landscape. You don't really get that with a walled garden, but the history was just kind of oozing out of the very pores of the walls. It was the stretches of the walls that have fallen over, so it was in a real state of disrepair. And the thing that I always say is, if you can imagine your back garden having been left sort of to its own devices and a bit mismanaged for, let's say, 10 years, if you apply that logic to, I think it was about 4 or 5 acres of walled garden, you've got this arboretum that's filled with really old specimens. Like it had trees, and there were trees present in that arboretum that I know that Kew Gardens were aware of. There are some of the very oldest sequoia-dendrons in the country, from what we can tell. Huge magnolia grandifloras, really, really big, grand old specimens. But I didn't get the head gardener position. I lost out to a guy who was basically senior gardener over at Scotney Castle. He was there, Anthony Gray, who's one of the most talented gardeners I've ever worked with. He effectively operated as, I suppose, assistant head gardener in an unofficial sense for really quite a long time. But moved over to Brick Wall. And I'd been there for about a year. I'll be really honest, the money was appalling. Like McDonald's.
I can see the nod there. I can see the nod. That was tough.
McDonald's was going to pay better.
Wow.
But I was at Brick Wall for, I think it was 3 days a week. I was balancing that with a bit of whatever I could find
to make up the.
and that's where Great Dixter comes in. So obviously Brick Wall's in Northiam, but I'd add as well that I'd been visiting Great Dixter for years as a member of the public, kind of wandering in and kind of just being totally blown away by experience.
So excuse my ignorance.
Yeah.
Who's that? What was that?
So good old Great Dixter over in Northiam, the garden over there.
No, I don't know it. I don't know it.
Okay.
I'm going to look into it now.
No,
Yeah,
Tell you,
please
definitely.
do. So at Great Dixter, it's kind of the home of the great magic man, or was the home of the great magic man, Christopher Lloyd, is probably, I think, one of the greatest gardeners and one of the greatest garden writers of the 20th century. And it's run as a charitable trust. Dixter is, I think, kind of on par with like Sissinghurst or Kew, or if you look globally, I believe it's kind of on par with, you know, the High Line or the Lurie in Chicago. You've got, you know, Giardino, Nympha, these places. I would add as well, it's not part of the National Trust, and I think sometimes as a result, you know, it gets kind of overlooked. But they run the Christopher Lloyd Scholarship. Christopher Lloyd died in, I think, 2007. I didn't get to meet him. But it has been steered beautifully by the head gardener, Fergus Garrett, who I think is kind of like the Lionel Messi of horticulture. He's an absolute dynamo. The man's he's a genius and kind of one of my absolute all-time heroes. And they run something called the Christopher Lloyd Scholarship. And that's an opportunity to train for a year.
Yeah.
Under his tutelage, but also around, you know, with a team that I think are probably some of the greatest gardeners alive. And I, again, went into this interview. It's the most loose interview I've ever had. I've never been called a scumbag before in an interview. That happened. And I've never talked about in-depth knowledge about punk music. But there you are, talking to your hero. So I went into this interview. It was brilliant. So Ferg, I'll never forget it. I walked up to him. He approached me, shook my hand. I was terrified. Like, it's that moment you meet your hero. Yeah. It's like, you know, might as well have been David Bowie. It's that moment kind of trembling. I was like, sat down with him. And he said, "You all right, Josh?" I went, "Yeah, Fergus, I'm terrified."
Yeah.
Bless him. He turned around. "Well, have you eaten?" I said, "Well, no." And he goes, "Well, we've got some sandwiches. Do you want a sandwich?" I said, "I'm so nervous. If I eat a sandwich, I'm going to bring it straight back up." He then stopped. Could just see his twinkle in his eye. He just went, "Do you want a glass of whiskey?" And it's that great moment. And I said, "Well, probably best not need to be on my toes." But it was a great interview. And what a great set of interview questions that then fell into place. And there were technical kind of exams, not exams, but, you know, you had to do the ident tests, all of that stuff. And I've sat through quite a few of those kind of estate level interviews where you've got to sit there and you've got this sort of jug of flowers and you're kind of going, "Oh, I'm not looking at this in context." And of course you get nervous and you start, you know, spluttering and everything. But so again, I didn't get the scholarship. But at the end of the interview, Fergus, to give him incredible credit, kind of asked me, kind of, what can we do to, you know, he didn't say you hadn't got it. You hadn't got through at that point, but he said, you know, what can we do to support you with your career? And, you know, I hadn't done my RHS training at that point. Dixter supporting me with, get my RHS, which was via Robert Botanic Gardens, Edinburgh. They were brilliant with that. Anyway, so I didn't get the scholarship, but then Fergus got in touch a week later and just sort of said, "Come in, you know, join in. We'll treat you as a kind of scholar for the next year." Brilliant.
Excellent.
And, you know, but we'll do it kind of unofficially. And that was it. It was the most amazing experience. And via Dixter, I've travelled to Germany for the ISU plant conference, which is really good fun. If you're, again, what an amazing learning experience. You've got these kind of botanists from around the world talking, and I'm not a botanist, but actually talking about designers. The headliner was Sarah Price, who is, I think, one of my absolute favourite designers. But it's like you're in a room with people with these kind of planet-sized brains, and you suddenly feel really inadequate. It's like plants, me. But it was brilliant. But Dixter was amazing. I think I was about 8 months into it when the head gardener that I was working with at Brick Wall, he handed his notice, and I think he is. I don't know if he's still there. He moved over to Hush Heath over in Goldhurst. I think he's still head gardener there. Okay. And I basically fell into the role of head gardener, and that great moment of sort of being really exhilarated, elated, brilliant. I've always wanted to be a head gardener. Terrified. More terrified. Turning up on day one, and it's that great moment. You find yourself kind of thinking. Last week I was kind of training at Dixter, and I was just working at Brick Wall, but suddenly you're going through it's health and safety, isn't it? You're looking through COSH sheets. You've got your risk assessments. And actually, this goes back to the point, like, when people occasionally ask me, you know, any advice about head start to being a good head gardener is, well, get your head around employment law at a really basic level. Like no one's expecting you to stand up at the Old Bailey, but learn some basics.
Yeah.
And learn some health and safety. And it's one of those things. But it was a great combination. There was, with that job, it was, health and safety was really important because it was, attached to a special needs school, effectively. But what an experience. It was very practical, very hands-on, and I got to steer the garden. And it was brilliant. I worked with some fantastic gardeners there, really good gardeners. We, again, were paying very little. So we were taking people on board who were starting in their career, which is really exciting.
It's good to see as well. That would be lovely to see.
Yeah, and 2 or 3 people actually who were, again, second career types, and it's that great, maybe kind of, you've got someone who might not have the plant knowledge, but if they've got the enthusiasm, you can bolt it on around that.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting, and this is going to sound maybe counterintuitive. I remember this point where you take on a gardener for a year who's talented and kind of excited, and after a year they move on. And I kind of initially found that really hard because you think, I've put a load of time into this.
Yeah.
But then you kind of very, very quickly I thought, actually, this is really cool.
Yeah, you get to watch and see. That's yeah.
Now they're going off and designing gardens and working.
Yeah, I think that's always one of the nicest things when you see like bring people through, and then you see them, you see their careers develop. I know when we had like guys who used to do sort of planning work in construction, so they'd be doing all the Gantt charts, all that type of stuff on big construction projects, and then you'd see them, after they've left us, they've gone on to bigger and better things, and there's a lot of pride in that.
Pride, yeah.
Oh, totally. You're imparting real knowledge. I think that's kind of the most important thing. I'd add to that I'm still learning. That's the best part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's still the thing that I get most excited about. I still find myself kind of going through, let's say, trade mags. I still receive, all of the nursery sort of seed lists, and I still get excited. There's still that childlike excitement, and you've got to tap into that. I really, really do think that. And one of the greatest lessons from Great Ticks was this sense of gardening with a sense of joy. And that's not as easy as you think, right? You could be, you're piss wet.
Yeah.
You're cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're hungover.
Rabbit's nodding here.
Oh, yes.
That's a standard day for you, Rabbit, isn't it?
Today, actually.
I was at yesterday, that horizontal rain, but it's still that moment you've got to kind of go, okay, how do I translate or kind of block that out?
Yeah.
And treat the thing that I'm looking at with a sense of joy. But I love my time at Brick Wall. It was immensely enjoyable. So after Brick Wall, I worked as head gardener over at Goddington, which is over towards Ashford. Really big garden. I didn't last that long there. I won't go into too many details, but kind of, marriage breakdown, mental health tanked as part of that. Yeah. It's one of those great moments. I was kind of thinking about it a few weeks ago. I wonder if I took on that job now, kind of having, divorced, got a shitload of therapy, shitloads of counselling, all of that stuff.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a completely different story, but I definitely wasn't in the right frame of mind to be tackling something like that.
It's a good choice to make. But,
that's it, and that's a big open garden, open to the public. But after that, it's been. I've had some other. Again, it's a thing with the breakdown. This is the other thing. You're dealing with human beings, right? Yeah. And we all go through really shit times in our life.
Yeah,
we all fundamentally have to navigate really horrible things. At the same time, you've still got a job that you've got to perform in, and that job was really difficult behind the scenes. And I don't want to go into details or kind of trigger kind of high court litigation kind of. But at the same time, I after that it was a really hard time, and I think it's this kind of process. I remember I felt very desk bound, which I'm not suited to. Hence why I'm quite happy to have stinging nettles. Yeah. But I since then have, there was a period of real struggle, but then there was that point where you kind of go, actually, I do know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I've got experience. I know how to garden.
Yeah.
I know what I'm good at. I also know what I'm not good at.
Yeah.
And actually, that's really important. I think that applies to almost anything professionally.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
As I said earlier, I'm not a landscaper. I'd love to be able to use a digger, but it's like that's a mass casualty event. So
it's been tarring our job. Same all.
So I know that's that's not within my skill set. For example, but I'm not a tree surgeon. Again, mass casualty event. That would be horrendous. But I know fundamentally coming from something like Brick Wall, where I was effectively restoring something I was having to design, digging into historical records to make it relevant. It's so, and I do come from when I was at school as well. I was saying that I was very outdoorsy. I was also very arty, and it's that moment where you think, okay, I can design effectively, great. I'm competent. That's one of the great things of being a head gardener is generally you have to have a pretty good skill set across the board. You have to be able to hop on a mower or you have to understand your plants. Need to so it fulfills so many briefs. And it was that point we think, okay, well, where do we go from here? And that's when I set up Taylor's Organic Gardening, which that great moment you kind of go, I still don't really understand where I came up with that title. It's that great moment you kind of
So how long ago was that? How long's the company been going?
It's a couple of years.
A couple of years, yeah.
A couple of years. So it's not long. It hasn't been around for long.
Did you have any sort of like, with the jobs that you had, did you have any sort of like business experience in terms of how you were going to sort of run the business idea, how you're going to market it, all the admin side, all that type of stuff?
That's a really good question. And so when it came to marketing, for example, I think I say lucky. So when I took on Brickwall, I set up my Instagram at that point with this attitude of kind of going, well, the pay is really bad, but this is a really beautiful garden.
Yeah.
If I can just take loads of photographs and upload them onto Instagram, that can be my portfolio. So when I approach a new employer, great, I'll just hand them, my Instagram.
Yeah.
And that fundamentally kind of left me with, I think I'm about 21,000 followers at the moment. So it's a decent following.
Yeah.
But I had the moment thinking, well, I've kind of got a potential client base.
Yeah.
Right. Just go on there and just see if I can source a bit of work. And actually the client that I've come from today, Liz, she was one of the people that responded.
Wow.
And I've been working with her for a couple of years. And again, it's one of those great moments. I think I put one advert out on the Wealden Advertiser, local free ads. And that great made me kind of suddenly being pinged jobs from, you name it.
You've got to get a whole...
I used to turn up to these gardens, you think, I don't think I'm the right person to kind of, I don't know. I don't want to sound, this is going to sound really arrogant, but that moment you kind of turn up to a garden, you just think, we're not going to work together.
Well, it's the best thing ever. I think for me that for me, it's both of us. We've got to work together. We're going to be in this garden together. If there is a moment we think we're not the right fit, that's it, and that's okay. And that for me is, sometimes yes, you need the work in the beginning, sure. But you can, if it's not going to work,
it's not gonna work.
You're just not going to work.
Being honest,
and then, and that's it. It works so much better, and then you allow other clients to come with you, which are going to work.
Yeah,
and it's just it's so much better to do that.
Actually, there was a guy that I trained at Fairlight Hall. Going on a tangent here, he RAF Graham. Funny enough, ex-RAF.
Oh yeah.
But he was fascinating. There's this great point that he made. He was training with the RAG scheme, so WRAGS. This great scheme for retraining in horticulture later in life. And he made this great point, great observation where he said there are two types of people in the world. People you can go for a beer with and the people you can't.
Yes.
Prioritise the people you can go for a pint with.
Yeah.
He said, you'll get through the shit times with those people. He said, sack off the others.
Yeah, immediately.
And actually, that does apply to my clients. I've got a clutch of long-running clients where I'm effectively working as I guess it's like a hands-on consultancy, effectively. And that's magical for me because I take on these large gardens.
Yeah.
And I guess it's like, it's design, it's long-form, and it gives me this great opportunity to kind of assess soil aspect, all these really, really crucial things. That could be acidity.
Yeah.
All of this kind of geeky stuff, but actually it creates the opportunity to kind of conjure up these kind of long form designs, and it's really good fun. I've got brilliant clients, but at the same time I'm kind of balancing that at the moment with taking on stuff that's a bit more short form, so more design led.
So what would be your niche? What is your area of expertise? If you've got a client comes to you and that's the perfect client, how would you offer your services? What is your service?
I think for me it's kind of unlocking a space.
Yeah.
Right. I know it sounds really basic.
Yeah.
But it's looking. This is creativity. I think this is kind of where art comes into all of this. It's that point where you're fundamentally trying to psychologically, mentally conjure up something that either doesn't exist yet, or needs to be kind of discussed and kind of morphed into be kind of, or maybe enhanced. That's the other thing. And I'm going to sound really arrogant, but one of a source of work that I have had over the course of the last few years is coming into gardens where people have employed designers, sometimes like quite well-known designers, and the gardens say 2 years in
Yeah.
hasn't performed.
Yes.
And that can be really simple. That can be a designer coming in and not necessarily understanding soil type.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how important that is. This also feeds into kind of climate resilience, I've learned as well. And right now, we need to be practicing right plant, right place. more than
Yes.
ever.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right, so, for example, I took over a really big garden a while ago. And I think about a decade previously, there was that point where people said, we're going to inherit more of a Mediterranean climate.
Yeah.
Great. So they then bought a load of Mediterranean plants and just chucked them straight into low wheeled clay.
Clay.
No amelioration.
Come on.
Right?
Like-
And on top of that, if you chuck a load of grist onto that kind of clay, you're probably going to
Yeah.
clog
Yeah.
the soil. So this feeds into that point about right plant, right place. That I really, really mean that. If you've got your plantsmanship kind of bolted on, you should be capable of steering a garden relatively well. But going back to that point of coming into gardens that have been designed, implemented, it's really surprising. Again, I hate to sound arrogant, but there's this
No,
moment
but-
of walking in and kind of going, well, the spacing's off.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Simple,
plant's going to grow
simple.
at far higher rate
Yeah.
than the one next to it.
Yeah.
That one wants full sun.
Yeah.
That one wants full shade, and I'm surprised at how much that happens.
I think
Yeah.
I think it does. I guess that's interesting in the planting world. That does happen. It happens for us as well as landscapes. When you go into a garden, you think someone goes, "Oh, this bed isn't working," and you're just like, "Well, hang on a minute. Why is it in the corner where all the leaves gather?" And they go, "Where's the shed?" And they go, "Well, put it over there in the sun." And you're just like, why have you not put the shed tucked in the corner
Yeah.
where that was just, and then made the, and you're just like, I can't believe that, but it does. And you're just like, well, they just put it there because I asked them to, instead of going, well, actually, hang on, why can't the shed go in that corner?
Yeah.
And, the planting go over that side.
Totally,
Yeah.
and you can do it in a kind way.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily,
No,
and
you
you can do, and it's about having a conversation.
Professional. It's yeah.
I really do believe as well that gardens, when they are long form, or short form, it's about having a conversation. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's applying expertise to that conversation. And I've had numerous clients where this is, how can I phrase this? The ones that are my favourite clients are the ones who either know loads about horticulture or next to nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where it's really fun.
Yeah.
And I've got a great client in Rye. I've got 2 really good clients I'm working with in Rye at the moment, and they've both turned around separately, 2 separate gardens, and said, I don't want to do anything. I don't like gardening.
Yeah.
This guy's like, I'm in my 50s.
Yeah.
I'd know by now if I was into gardening, fishing.
I'd
stuff
work
like
that out. Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
he goes, I want you to turn the garden into the most Instagrammable garden in Rye. Like, yeah, okay. I'll do it.
That's brilliant.
But I was going to say, this feeds into the kind of tapping into sense of place, and that's crucial with gardens as well. Super important. So there's one of the gardens in Rye is, and this is something I'm really enjoying, is really applying expertise. So working as head gardener, you're on the same site day in, day out. I'm working, as you know, come away from the Romney Marsh today from a beautiful garden there. I've got another client on the Low Weald. Brilliant couple who I absolutely adore. Some of the nicest human beings on the planet.
That's great.
I'm gardening on pure clay
Yeah.
with a sliver of grass, no topsoil.
yeah. That's it. Feather it.
And one of these gardens in Ryan working on salt marsh. So I've got this
Oh wow.
this
Really,
set.
really different.
And I've had some great opportunities this year. I worked via Mark O'Neill, who's a fantastic gardener who I've met via Great Dixter. I spent a day working with him up at Maggie's at the Royal Marsden, the hospital up at Sutton. That was amazing. Again, it's a Pete Aldoff designed space, a really beautiful space. And you're working around a hospice, so you're dealing with, and this is the other really important thing with gardens I've really had to learn, they're incredibly personal spaces.
Yeah.
People get drunk in them, they have barbecues, they grieve in them.
Yes, that's really
Seriously.
lovely. That is
Yeah.
really,
This is
really
really
lovely.
important to
Yeah.
understand. And actually, people require gardens to do different things.
Yeah.
That's it.
I had someone approach me right at the end of my day when I was working at this hospice garden.
Yeah.
And bless her, and this is a weird thing with the hospice, it's the first time I've ever been near one. I thought it was going to be a bit kind of gloomy, it wasn't.
Yeah.
There was an incredible sense of optimism. But a woman approached me right at the end, just as I was about to kind of chuck my tools in the car and to go home, and she said, she goes, yeah, this was my son's favourite garden.
Oh.
And I sort of stupidly turned around, how's he doing?
Yeah.
Because you're knackered, you're sweating, and it's like, oh yeah, he
Add
died.
words, take the back.
But that made me kind of go, oh, really sorry. Also, this is the other great thing with gardening. You're now tired, sweaty, you know. Maybe at 10 o'clock that morning I wouldn't have been sort of so unaware. But it's that great moment. And she said, we're planning on spreading his ashes here in the next few weeks. And you kind of go, actually, you're dealing with things that are incredibly significant. They're emotionally charged spaces, even if it's someone's back garden.
Yeah.
And that goes,
So you don't have in terms of like sort of scale, you can work at any scale in terms of gardens, and do you work for like private and commercial type organisations as well?
That's a really good question. It's all private at the moment.
Yeah.
In terms of scale, I'm not afraid of scale. I think that was, a byproduct of working on some of the larger head gardener kind of spaces. Ultimately the processes are the same, and I do work on small gardens. But process is crucial for me, and this feeds into gardening really well. And this also feeds into maintenance, which I think is a really misunderstood, missold element of horticulture. I think that, maintenance is actually that's kind of where the magic really needs to happen as well.
Timing,
You can have a beautifully designed, built garden. If that's maintained poorly, and this includes kind of after planting, how do you allow a garden to mature? It won't mature by itself. That's really important. And so, in terms of maintenance, like with a lot of the jobs I do with the kind of consultancy, there's still this element of having to garden really well. Garden maintenance as a phrase doesn't sound sexy.
No.
It's not. And I think this is a really big problem with the industry, because I don't think it's sold in schools. I don't think it's it's not encouraged as a career.
Yes.
It's not.
Yeah.
And actually, the wages are an issue, but I think there are things that are happening behind the scenes at the moment that are starting to shift that.
Yeah.
Which I think is going to be very positive for the industry. But but going back to that point about kind of my kind of work, like I would like to do more kind of public stuff.
Yeah.
I would really like to do that. I was talking with Jack Kent the other day. Again, brilliant talking to a landscaper. That moment you can trust someone implicitly. You kind of go, you know your stuff.
He's great. Yeah.
And I'm, like I say, meeting with him in a garden in Rye tomorrow for a build. And that's really exciting. It goes back to that point of, I want to do more public stuff ultimately. And we were sort of chatting over a coffee, sort of talking about doing, mate, you sort of not joke, but you find yourself thinking maybe a Chelsea further down the line isn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
And
It's always something to aim for, isn't it? Aspire to. And
yeah. And I know that Chelsea as an organisation has gone through quite a difficult year. They've had the sort of controversy around DEI stuff, and there are really big questions about how the RHS are handling the kind of ecological sort of side of things with the builds at Chelsea, and they're not that ecologically sound, to be blunt.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of trying to find ways in my head of trying to mitigate both of those elements.
Yes.
I think if a flower show is going to survive, it needs to. If as an organisation, I think the RHS needs to start figuring this one out quite quickly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of looking at a problem and kind of maybe thinking, okay, this is exciting. How do we kind of?
What's the solution? That's it.
I'd add as well that I don't want to jump straight into a Chelsea. I've got no interest in kind of going.
Yeah.
Guess what I'm doing this time next year, because it'd be awful. This is almost like again thinking of like a football analogy. It's like coming up via the lower leagues. Like I'm Accrington, Stanley.
Yeah.
it's like a 5-year sort of aim, isn't it? Sort of development.
Yeah. I think it'd be daft to go for Chelsea right now. I wouldn't enjoy it. It would. I get the impression.
Do you find is there like a lot of, if you want to go to Chelsea and have a Chelsea garden, do you have to get involved in a lot of marketing, a lot of schmoozing with the right people, all that type of thing, to be able to get the opportunity to work with a Chelsea garden?
That's a very good question. From my perspective, I want to build a reputation, really solidify
Even
that.
if it's a bad one.
Yeah, that's categorically it. And I am leaning more and more into design, and that's the thing that I'm getting real excitement out of the moment. And that's a byproduct of gardening, having gardened for years. It's kind of seeing, I don't want to say other people's kind of misfortune or failure, but it's kind of thinking, what can I do better? How can I apply myself? And I'm kind of at this point in my career now where I'm really excited, because it's like I've got this experience behind me, and it's kind of seeing where I can push next. And going back to public as well, for example, with towns and cities are a really good example right now. Sheffield City Council have got some great examples of public planting within the city that are beautiful. I dropped my daughter off with my in Rye regularly, and I look at the public planting there, and it's like a KFC car park.
Yeah, that's not
you know,
okay.
when you've got the kind of crisp packets in the Berberis, and you sort of think,
God, come on.
this could be handled really well.
Yeah,
And I get the impression Dexter are doing stuff on the seafront in Hastings right now.
Yeah.
That could be really beautiful. I think there's an aspect to come to talk about there maybe at some point in time.
I was going to say, do you see there's like an angle to try to talk to some of these organisations to say, look, for what you've got, you could be a lot more creative and probably not spending a lot more money either.
Yeah, I think that actually this is cost. Cost is really important. This feeds into design, maintenance, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this I've worked organically. You know, the clues in my
Yeah, that's
company
it,
size.
yeah.
I've worked organically for donkey's years now.
Yeah.
There's definitely a cost benefit if you handle it well, and it's not particularly difficult to get your head around. But there are a set of processes that I use regularly. You can scale them up or down,
Yeah.
and they are really good cost-effective ways of reducing your monthly expenditure. I remember, again, that was one of the big issues at Brick Wall, was that we were, I don't want to sound rude, but we were really struggling financially when I first took it on. They wanted to turn this beautiful building, they wanted to use it for the 8 weeks of the summer holiday as a wedding venue,
Yeah.
because they were struggling school. And I just remember the head gardener I was working with approaching the business manager and asking for money for compost and being told no.
No, you see, that's just not on.
But they had no money, no money whatsoever. But this goes back to the point I remember kind of very quickly, kind of when I took on the headship, kind of going, well, where can I save? Do we need to be spending money on synthetic fertilizers? Well, no. You can generate really good fertilizers. Let's say you can get a patch of comfrey, Symphytum officinalis. If you're tight on spacing, you don't want it running away, Symphytum cross up Blandicum will do a good job. It won't run. These are really good fertilizers.
Yeah.
You stick them in a bucket or a water butt followed by some water and a brick. You've got your liquid feed.
Yeah, yeah.
Nettles do
Yeah.
the same thing. That's your nitrogen. But it's applying these really simple things. Once those plants are in, they're free.
Yeah,
it's
that's it. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
those little things.
Yeah.
But this feeds into upscaling. I've done that on bigger estates. I've done it on, people's back
Yeah.
gardens. It's scalable.
It's amazing, isn't it, how much that's sort of like, I suppose it's old school knowledge in a way, isn't it, of how to actually garden and cultivate using natural products rather than having to go off, down the sort of synthetic lines when, there's skills worth having from people. And I imagine not everybody has those skills, that's understanding.
Yeah, totally. And actually, that's the other thing that I'm really excited about at the moment, is trying to kind of communicate that a bit more.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of giving talks over at Napita Nursery.
Right.
Towards Betherston, so towards Ashford.
Yeah.
Really good independent nursery. And it's going to be a case of going in there and kind of giving talks regularly on different kind of disciplines.
Brilliant.
The thing is, it's kind of getting that information across. It's not difficult. They're different processes. They're not necessarily harder. I think that's the thing to bear in mind. And when it came to spraying at Brick Wall, for example, bearing in mind we're a dyslexia specialist school, we realised that, kids won't read health and safety signage. No. They just won't. You put up a sign saying spraying in, chemicals being sprayed.
Yeah.
They'll run straight past it.
Adults don't read it, man. Like, it's
Oh,
not-
I don't.
You know what I mean?
So the road sign, road closed. I'll see about that, mate. But it goes back to that point. It's that kind of, I realised very quickly, we can't spray glyphosate.
Yeah.
You get this narrow window of a half term, for example. If you've got a wet week,
Oh, that's it.
well, you can't spray for another.
Windy week or
You've got a
whatever.
10-week
the hell,
week
you're in.
before you get a sprayer out again.
Yeah.
We experimented with burners. We
Yeah.
had this thing briefly. We called it the F16 because it sounded like it sounded like a jet engine kind of. And like that moment, you like a cross between one of the Wurzels and someone from Rammstein with this kind of flamethrower, and it was really good fun, but really inefficient.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, the method I use now, it's everyone knows it, but it's I just use Amazon vinegar.
Yeah.
Cheap kind of multi-litre bottles, dash of really cheap sea salt, like salt.
Yes, yes.
No, don't go for the Saxa stuff. That's way too pricey. Literally go for the stuff that's kind of like sort of cash and carry, sort of mold, like big bag, and just a load of washing up liquid, and that will do the same job as glyphosate. I mean,
Wow.
I say it will do the same job. It's not systemic
Yeah.
in the same way that glypho is, but to be honest, by the time you've clobbered up, filled out your timesheets, if you've had to measure the site beforehand versus me just getting my kind of Amazon cheap vinegar and giving it a second spray. Actually, in terms of time difference, I honestly, there's not much in it at all.
Yeah.
I haven't got to worry about, again, we're talking about cosh, and actually this feeds into the handling of chemicals.
Yes, of course.
I've taken on 2 head gardener roles where I've, over the course of time, where I've taken on roles where the chemical has been so badly stored.
Oh no.
There's no reference, what's it called, like the cost sheets hadn't been filled in. One of the big gardens I worked on, I was stumbling across bottles of chemical that were outlawed in like 2004. There's one bottle, there's the kind of, you've got the kind of codes on the back that you can type into the health and safety website.
Yeah.
There's one where I just kept on kind of trying to reapply this code. You kind of go, this is the...
Banned in
It's a
1972.
DD. Hey, what is this? The stuff we think if I chuck this in pure water, Tunbridge Wells is being evacuated. But I'm not joking. We had to bring out a company to dispose of this stuff. We had to bring out a company that deal with the disposal of chemical weapons. Yes, seriously. But this stuff is so poorly handled so frequently as well.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen it sprayed right next to water courses.
No.
But it's so good in a way that you know that, and it's. I suppose the other thing that also just sort of struck me was when you're saying you're giving talks and at the garden centres. Well, what a nice way of actually promoting yourself.
Yeah.
In a non-aggressive marketing way. I mean, I always think giving seminars and talks is a really good way of demonstrating your expertise to people who are going to be genuinely interested in what you do.
I think that's half the battle one, isn't it? It's kind of engaging people, and people are engaged. The other people that are engaged right now are the people coming through from from the school school age. So I'm very aware that kids these days are hyper aware compared with when I was at school. Like I'm 41.
No,
When I was at school, there wasn't quite the same amount of understanding. Now you get a school like a coachload of kids running through your garden. Yeah. They're not daft. They can see when things are being mishandled, and that's both challenging, but also I think really encouraging and actually really exciting.
It's nice. It's really, really nice. I agree with you totally. Yeah.
And I think the more we can promoting intelligent, kind of sensitive ways of gardening, the more we can do that, the better. And actually, the amount of this country that's taken up by garden space. I mean, we're talking about a stretch of land that's kind of on par with you're talking about multiple national parks. I think we're talking about hectare. You're talking about swathes of land.
Yes.
On top of that as well, I'd say one of the greatest joys I still get on my gardens I work on or I build is seeing biodiversity return.
Yes.
That's
exactly you're ringing all the bells that are absolutely
it's magical. That engages adults, children, doesn't matter who you're talking to, that'll engage people. And so the client I was with today, I was speaking to her a few weeks ago and she said, for example, again, this garden it's got the most incredible depth of biodiversity, full of wildlife. And there's this great moment she said to me the other day, I think it's like a couple of weeks ago, she said, Josh, I had this really weird screeching sound coming from the garden the other night. Yeah. So, okay. We're sort of trying to do the kind of conversation, like, did it sound like a badger? Was it a fox?
Yeah.
And eventually kind of arrive at a point we go, oh, it's a barn owl.
Oh, wow.
And you go, okay, so you've got barn owl. There's a barn owl in the garden.
Brilliant.
The next week you turn up, there are 2 barn owls.
Yes.
So they've got a pair of barn owls settling in the garden. You've got every species of woodpecker in the garden. You've got this kind of kaleidoscope of small birds. You've got small mammals. The garden that I work on the Kentish Low Weald, near Edgerton, brilliant clients. Again, similar thing is happening there. Brilliant. There's a really good depth of insect life. Yeah. And it's really important to get this right. Yes. Really important. This feeds into design and landscaping. We were, talking about it with Jack the other day. This kind of thoughts around, the hard landscaping is vitally important. That is concrete, quite literally. You need that in a garden to be present. That is crucial. But how you manage everything around that also falls into place and needs to. Yeah. That's. I think it goes back to the point where we're both at an incredibly frightening time ecologically and a really exciting time. I try to lean into the exciting now. And every garden I've worked on for any stretch of time, just that there seems to be an increase in this kind of this broader biosphere, and I think that's a magical thing to be doing. It's and talking about very, very quickly to go back to the commercial aspect,
Yeah.
at Brick Wall, when we were trying to turn it into a wedding venue, there's this great point where I inherited these huge box parterres that were hammered with box blight and, you know, the caterpillar. They were, we had to dig these things out, burn them.
Yes, absolutely.
And I thought, okay, well, let's, you know, ameliorate the soil. Let's plant something that's really simple that can, you know, survive year on year. Probably didn't think it through too much, but I thought I'd just pack it with lavender.
Yeah.
So we ended up with these huge parterres full of lavender. And this feeds into the commercial aspect. So lavender, I was using intermediate cross grosso, so it's big lavender. So you're talking something that gets up to way past hip height, big plants, and they are a magnet, absolute magnet for the other small white butterflies.
Yeah.
Selling a wedding venue,
Yeah.
where if you walk into part of the garden, you walk into a cloud of thousands of white butterflies. There you go.
Yeah.
You've just made £20,000 worth of wedding sale.
Yes. Yes.
And actually, it is commercial, it is sellable. This feeds into the point about beauty and beauty being sustainable.
Yes.
Right? So let's say, let's press the magic button where I get to rework the Gardens of Rye around the train station where it is, you know, crisp packets in, but which might not be able to deal with the crisp packets, but plant that sensitively. Do it in a way where it is sustainable.
Yeah.
And for me, planting as well, it's staggered. You know, planting a garden for me, that's a 3-year process. I can't make a garden look amazing in year one, even with that first lump of perennials going in.
Yeah.
Year one is, for me, perennials.
Yeah.
Maybe pad it out with some annuals just to take up some of that weight. Year two is where I'm sort of incorporating the kind of the bulbs, get that kind of display going, really get that running through a garden. By the time you get to year three, that's where you're wanting to fine tune.
Excellent.
Really understand what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
But for me, gardens they're ongoing.
Brilliant.
It's an ongoing conversation.
I imagine, they are. You know, it's going to be something that's going to take a lot of time. They're going to develop over time. And talking about time, our time is nearly through. We could go on for a lot longer. And I'm getting the messages from our producer here. So I suppose just to finish up then, how can people get in touch with you? Yeah. Where were the best ways of finding you?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Let everyone know where they get hold of you.
Yeah, so there's a pub in Rye called...
We'll be going there next anyway.
No, good question. Instagram's a good bet.
Yeah.
Jump into my DMs, that's a great shout.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you can go to my website, which is Taylor's Organic Gardening.
Yep.
And .co.uk or whatever it is.
Brilliant.
Go there and please get in touch. And it's the old thing, like, you know, with my work, I've kind of built in a bit of sway.
Yeah.
So I can take on new clients and do these things where I do get to design and develop. So
another quick question: when are you doing one of your talks? When are you?
There's one coming up in a couple of weeks.
When? What's the date?
That's a good question.
Oh, I tell you what, I'll
it's on the website.
It's on the website. I'll get it off the website.
Let's put it on the show notes, shall we?
Yeah, we'll do that because I'd love to come listen. Honestly, I would love to come listen.
You're more than welcome. But honestly,
great stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Thank you so much for having me on.
No, I tell you, we've got to wrap it up. And I think the other good thing is what we're trying to do as well is we want to have a bit more of a chat with Rabbit and also the rest of your team, Ryan. So as we get nearer Christmas or maybe after Christmas, we'll get some of the boys on to.
I think we will.
We want to get your feedback, Rabbit, on how Ryan does and everything like that, how the company is run. So
no.
we give you your opportunity to sound off.
Do you need a mediator or someone to sit?
We might well do. But anyway, we've got to wrap this one up. But once again, so thank you very much indeed, Josh, for coming in. It really is appreciated. Thanks, Rabbit, for you coming in as well. And from Ryan.
See you later, guys.
And from me, JB, and we'll catch you on another Outside Crowd podcast.